This is This Week in Perspective with me, Adam Simbe. But a week ago, the country, Tanzania, and indeed the world, celebrated the World Environmental Day 2017 in Butiama at the national level. I'm sure the purpose was to honor the father of the nation, Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, but we'll hear from the powers that be here. They'll explain why. Tanzania is a signatory to the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, which she signed, obviously, on the 22nd of April 2016. The Climate Change Agreement is viewed globally as the last best chance to rein in emissions of global warming. So far, 147 parties out of 197 have ratified the convention, and the United States, as you all know, has now withdrawn from the agreement. To discuss the importance, significance of Paris Agreement today with me are Fazal Issa from Forum for Climate Change, an NGO involved in these issues. Next is Dr. Vedas Makota from NEMKI, that's the National Environmental Management Council. Next on my left is Kenzio Freddy Manyika, who is the Dr. Makota is the Director for Environmental Information and Communication and Outreach. And Dr. Manyika is Principal Environmental Officer, Environmental Section, Office of the Vice President. Last but not least, the only lady, and thank you for coming, is Rebecca Muna. She's the Director of Forum for Climate Change in Dar es Salaam. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I cannot stop saying thank you for coming, Muna, because my gender imbalance has been addressed today. For the second time, a gender balance has been balanced, as it were. Thank you very much. Now, let me start with Dr. Manyika. Then I hope all of you will come in and answer the same question, because this is an operative question. How serious is climate change to Tanzania, and what steps have we taken to mitigate its effect and that of the environment? How serious is this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Simbe, and thank you for having us here. The problem of climate change in Tanzania and globally, they are real. And we recently have witnessed how climate change is impacting our economy, our social, and as well as the environmental affairs. The series of floods, drought, and also increase of disease are obvious and very conspicuous. And most places, disease has increased. For instance, the spread of malaria nowadays, they are seen where they were not seen. In the high altitude, for instance, Kilimanjaro, even in Mbeya. And also the disappearance of...
by Mbeya, of course, you mean Southern Highlands.
Yes, Southern Highlands.
Yes.
Yes. Again, the disappearance of glaciers at Mountain Kilimanjaro. If you compare it from 1920s up to now, almost 80% of the glacier has gone. And it's likely to disappear completely maybe in the next 20 or 30 years to come. This is the impact of climate change. And then on the seashore, the sea is rising because of global warming. The impacts are very vivid. You go to the sea level, the shore, you find that a lot of part of the soil is being affected.
The sea declining, sorry, Dr. Manyika, reminds me of the story I read somewhere that in 50 years, Zanzibar will not exist because of the climate change and the sea declining.
Yes, the sea rise is the threat to most of the small islands,
Yes.
including Zanzibar. Zanzibar is one of the islands which are being threatened by sea level rise. And for the past 50 years, I think there has been an increase of almost over 1 meter above the sea level. So this is a threat to Zanzibar and the other small islands which are part of the ocean.
Is the drying of Lake Rukwa, I think it's either Lake Manyara or one other lake up there. They're drying up, not like they were. This is also part of the consequences of climate change?
Lake Rukwa, yes, there is a mixture of things which are contributing to the drying of Lake River. Yes, because the catchment areas which fits the Lake Rukwa, they are all affected by climate change. There are also some invasion from agricultural activities, livestock, and other human activities up in the upstream. They are all contributing to the drying of Lake River. But also, climate change has also a significant contribution to the drying of Lake River.
Okay. Let's hear from Dr. Makota. Not just because you come from Nemki, but you are a professional in these things and you have handled all these issues. Tell us, do you agree with Dr. Manyika that climate change is serious? And what examples can you give us so that people can understand, those who are going to view the program can understand what we are talking about here?
Thank you so much, Mr. Simbeye. I fully agree with what Mr. Manyika has just mentioned here. And actually, the evidence about climate change cannot just be witnessed by ourselves here, but it is based on the scientific studies that have been conducted. To start with, I can mention that there is a panel, International Panel for Climate Change, IPCC. This involves a team of experts from different parts of the world who have been monitoring the temperatures of the world for more than 150 years. And it reached a point whereby they said that the issue of climate change is no longer something that needs to be imagined. No, it is a real. So they are saying climate change is unequivocal. It's not something that we can say, well, we are not really sure about climate change, but it's really there and it has affected the planet Earth. So just like what Manyika said here about areas that he has identified which are now being impacted by climate change, we can also see it from the economic point of view, particularly on the agriculture. We are experiencing seasonal changes and seasonal shifting. Normally, if you could go to the elders, just like yourself, you would have said that some years back, you used to know that exactly the rains would have started at this particular date.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Where I come from, in Bozi,
yes.
it is a general understanding that the rains come plus minus 25th of November.
Exactly. But
without fail. But the couple of years, it has gone on up to the end of November, to the beginning of December.
Precisely. This has changed now. You can't even predict when the rains will start. And even if they start, sometimes the duration of the rains cannot be determined. In some cases, it can be prolonged. In some cases, it can be just a very short season. And even the intensity of the rains or excessive of the rains.
Yes.
We are experiencing excessive floods, which wasn't really the case some years back. So you can have rains, but the rains might be very excessive. So this is all, it provides the evidence that there has been climate change, and it really affects our economic activities, particularly agriculture, and the other sectors, just like what you mentioned here. You mentioned about the issue of malaria in highlands, just like Southern Highlands, Lushoto, Mbeya, they used not to experience malaria. But as a result of climate change, there's been favorable conditions that allows these mosquitoes now to be in those areas, which was
because they're no longer cold places?
Exactly, they're no longer cold places. Now mosquitoes find these are favorable conditions for them. They are there, and then when you go to areas like Lushoto, you can see people using mosquito nets, which wasn't the case some years back.
I've used mosquito net back home. I was surprised why I used mosquito net in Mbozi, where I never did.
Exactly, yeah. So this all shows that climate change, it's really happening and it's there. We as the country, Tanzania, we need to find ways now how to adapt and mitigate climate change.
Okay. Rebecca, would you want to come in here? What is your take on this whole kelele noise about climate change and all this? I mean, NGOs, I know you really, you are not there to criticize, but always to create more awareness about issues that may impact on the livelihood of in this case, Tanzanians. What do you say to this?
Yeah, the impact of climate change actually, it's more significant, and it is at all levels, from the economic point of view to the livelihood level. If I could start with the economic context, Tanzania is depending on natural resources in terms of its income, and all these sectors which are potential for economic growth are affected by climate change. Some of them have been mentioned by previous speakers, but the other more critical ones, which are not really traditional, mentioned, and actually it brings a very high cost on economic development. For example, infrastructure. Tanzania has experienced mostly extreme events when it comes to floods and drought. And for example, Tanzania infrastructure has been badly affected by floods. Even here in Dar es Salaam, the rains for like, if you are sustained for like 3 days, we all see how the roads are affected. Even if it's a tarmac road, I remember one day I was in Bagamoyo. You know, it took us 4 hours actually to cross over because
To drive from Bagamoyo?
No, the road actually was like,
cut off
completely, and because of what? Because of floods. So you see that the impact of climate change is not only limited to the natural resource sectors which we commonly know, but even to infrastructure. It means it sends a message that we need to be resilient, even the sectors which are not traditionally affected by climate change. The energy sector as well. It's good that Tanzania has progressively moved to natural gases, but hydro is also affected by the climate change because of scarcity of water and the like. And this is in addition to the previous impact which have been mentioned. I want to repeat it. But at the livelihood level, actually the situation is more serious because about 75 to 65 Tanzanians are depending on agriculture, and most of these are like hand-to-mouth production, and they all depend on rainwater. So if there's drought or delay in rain, it means it has implication in their food security as well as in the economic income. So, and it's unfortunately that all these implications are really related to climate change.
Okay, well, that's interesting. You more or less touch on the same factors that really demonstrate that climate change is serious, as Dr. Makota said, as well as Dr. Manyika. Now, Fazal, I beg your pardon, from Forum for Climate Change, but you're a project manager. Try and respond to the very first question, is it really serious? And then link in with what the Forum is doing to mitigate the effect of climate change.
I couldn't emphasize more than the previous speakers. Climate change is affecting at all levels and different sectors. And coming from Forum CC, we've gone in different places and actually observe what is happening. For the case of sea level rise, sea intrusion in land, the favorite islands, Zanzibar, both Unguja and Pemba. Pemba being the worst case, you see more than 100 or 120 meters have been invaded by the sea water. So these are just example of how those places are affected. But going back to on what now are we doing on addressing the challenges, because they've talked a lot of the impact. One is on awareness raising.
Yes.
Climate change in previous years, like what Dr. Manyika said, we should start with climate change is real. And then now we should go to how now to adapt to climate change as a country. For Tanzania, because we are not emitting much, we now don't talk about if it's real or not, because it's real.
Yes.
They are affected.
Yes.
So now the awareness part has changed. Previously, we were just informing them there is climate. And now we are changing on how they should adapt to climate change. And there are different perceptions. Could be one is just a purely environmental issue. So if you talk about climate change, they will just say cut down trees and planting trees. But as you heard, it's not only on environmental, it could be economic, it could be like agriculture, it could affect infrastructure. So one is doing away with this bad perception. Some of them just thought it's just a religious issue.
Is that so?
Yeah, we have committed sin and now God is punishing us. Yeah, so it starts.
Do you share that understanding that climate change and all these floods we are getting, yes, because God is angry with us because we have committed some sin, so He's punishing us? Do you share that? Before you continue.
To me, I think climate change have something to do with science. It's because the causes of climate change, from the science perspective, is because of human activities. Maybe from spiritual aspects.
How about Dr. Makon?
Exactly. I fully support what Faisal has said, because some years back we had a project at our office, National Environment Management Council. It was called the Mainstreaming Environment and Climate Change Adaptation into Development Programs and Plans, of which we had covered like 50 districts. So when we moved into these different districts, in some areas, this is what was being commented. Yeah, because people couldn't really link up whether the problem that they're having, prolonged drought spells and all this, is it because of climate change or there is something else?
There's no scientific explanation to them.
So for them, they would say, maybe we've done a lot of things that don't please the God, and then this is what we are receiving as punishment for us. So I fully support what he's saying.
Did you, while this was being advanced, or is being advanced, did you rationalize with them that it just can't be God? I'm sure this is science. And did they accept that?
Yeah, because they're experiencing the impact of climate change. And the thinking was, this could be good, especially at the coastal areas. You know, most of the coastal areas in Tanzania are religious societies. So we showed them, not as too scientific, because now you could confuse them. So we showed them on how actually it's happening. So at the start, they went on from religious to purely environmental, that this is just our own cause. We cut down trees, so it's our own problem. So that was now the second stage, because climate change is beyond what they are doing at the local level. It's a global thing through emission, especially from the developed countries. So after that, now the question comes, now what are we doing about it? So now we are in the same level. We know climate change, now how to adapt. So that's part of what we do, awareness. And then the second one is now how to adapt. So that's our also second thing that we do at Forum CC, working with the community. It could be farmers group, it could be livestock keepers, it could be some of the entrepreneurs. So how they should adapt. Different agriculture practices, that's another issue that we do. But importantly, as a network, because Forum CC is an organization which operate like a network of CSOs that are working on climate change related issues.
Do you have many?
In Tanzania now
the number?
we have 75 CSOs.
We don't hear much about them.
Of the individual organizations? They are doing much, especially on where we have been, they're doing much. Maybe I could also provide some examples. So the third issue that we are doing is, as a network, we're providing a platform for discussion for different stakeholders. So it could be community, it could be the civil society itself, the government, end donor group. So what we do is providing a platform on what is going on. It could be international discussion, it could be a national discussion on even the budget discussion or a policy process that is ongoing, or maybe it could be a specific on such issues as floods in Dar es Salaam. So
Yes.
we are also providing a platform. And the other thing is we also engage ourselves in these processes.
Okay.
At the national level, it could be regional and international.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let me come back to you, particularly on issues of policy. Before I move on to the next question, could you please explain to the viewers what's the difference between climate change and the environment? Do we separate the two? Are they inseparable? Are they intrinsically one and the same? When we talk about climate change, we actually talk about environment, or when we talk about the environment, we're talking about climate change. Can you clarify this?
Yes, it depends from which perspective you're looking at. Climate change, I mean, environment is broader. It also includes climate change. But climate change is specifically, we deal with climate variability for a long time. After 30 years, we will observe the changes that happened for the over 30 years. But for the environment, it can be anything around us. So some of the people do not really make a clear difference between the two, but there is. For climate change, is about to do with climate environment, not necessarily or anything around. With environment, maybe the location where you are, the locality of that, the environment of that locality might to be different. But the climate is the entire global, global perspective of the climate. That's why the causes not necessarily emanate from Tanzania. We might not have done a lot about the causes of climate change, but we are impacted.
All right. Now, while you are on. Let me also ask you to clarify this. I'm sure you followed the debate in the Bunge session, the current session. I don't know. I think it was the debate on the Ministry of Natural Resources, and there have been cries for people to stop using trees, cutting trees for charcoal, for energy purposes. But then the big question is, what's the alternative? How would the Tanzanians understand that using trees for charcoal as a source of energy is dangerous? Not today, even in the future, because then you are creating deforestation. What does the government do? Probably in collaboration with the NGOs.
Yes, Tanzania, the main source of energy is biomass, which comes from tree. We depend on fuel and charcoal, from which most of them are from the tree. And the tree squeezes the carbon, CO2, in order to continue grow. So once they are cut down or chopped down, they release the gases, the CO2, the carbon dioxide, and hence it contributes to climate change. Now, in another perspective, the environment, I mean, trees also maintain or preserve the environment, the catchment, the trees. They are also the source of amenities. Now, the government emphasizes that maybe the way we are mining these resources, the forestry is not sustainable. We need to find an alternative way of doing things. That's why we are promoting alternative source of energy. The government is promoting an alternative source of energy in order to save the trees, to save the environment, and to save the health of people who are using this charcoal and the fuel as a source of energy. But I understand the cry from most of the people, given the extent that we depend much on natural resources or fuel as a source of energy, that the initial cost may be of this alternative energy, a huge, in which most of the poor people cannot afford. But there are also very cheap technology which are being promoted, along with promotion to stop using, to reduce the use of charcoal.
Now, again, I'm sorry, the panelists, because this is where the policies are. Could you tell us, has the government ratified the Paris Agreement?
The government signed the Paris Agreement on 22nd April 2016, but we are yet to ratify. Ratification is a process.
Yes.
It's a step by step. We are still on the process. We want to make sure that everybody's on board when we reach a step of ratification.
Okay. Dr. Makota, basically, what are the major sources of pollution in Tanzania that contribute to COC, that is climate change eventually?
Well, just like what we've mentioned earlier on, still our country's economy relies on the use of these biofuels. So if you consider the use of petrol in running the cars, diesel in the industries, coal in industries also, and natural gas. Of course, when you burn this, the end product is carbon dioxide, which is a main contributor of these greenhouse gases. Well, and as a country, these are the main sources that we rely in terms of generating our economy. So definitely interacting with these gases as a source of energy, we end up contributing to some extent in the global warming or increase in the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But when it comes to the fact that how much do we contribute as a country compared to big nations like the United States, Canada, China and all this, then our contribution seems to be like insignificant. Because when you combine, let's say the total, the all of African continent, you put together, doesn't reach even half of what is being produced by the United States by itself. Alone, exactly.
Not even including China and India.
Yeah.
In fact, Africa contributes only 3% of the global emission. So then the per capita emission for US, for instance, is about 26.
Yeah.
But for Tanzania, it's 0.1.
Why should we bother if we're 0.3? And some of the things that we blame for producing CO2 are very essential, because otherwise people won't eat, people won't survive.
Yes.
So why should we
right.
bother?
This we call emission from Africa and Tanzania. In the case of Tanzania, we call them the survival emission. We have to.
Oh, survival emission. That's a new term, is it not so?
Yeah.
Have you heard about this new term, survival emission? Which means, yes, they could bend us, but yes, you can accept them because of survival. Is that so?
Yeah, it's mostly because it's not from like production processes like the US heavy industries and all that. So Africa and Tanzania's emissions are basically from making a livelihood. Mostly this way is called survival emission.
Okay. As time is going to be against us, let's move to something more challenging and very recent. And I read what you said, and I think Dr. Makota also, you were quoted in the newspaper. President Bush, I beg your pardon, Trump, that could be a wish Bush was back. Trump, finally we decided to withdraw the United States from the Paris Agreement. And US was a signatory to the agreement. And US, as Rebecca says, and you all agree, that is the biggest producer of CO2 because of the factories and all that, followed by probably China and India. Now, what impact will this have, the withdrawal from the US, on global efforts to mitigate climate change? Faisal?
Yeah, it has a lot of impact because now currently from 2007, US is the second biggest emitter, but previously the leading one. So pulling out from the Paris Agreement, from the historically largest emitter
Yes.
and the current second biggest emitter,
Second to who?
to China.
And India? Or just China?
Just China, yes. And then you have the European Union and then India. So for a country like United States pulling out of the Paris Agreement, which of course it was a surprise for them to sign and ratify earlier as it was, because previously they jumped the ship whenever the agreement comes on table. Look at the Kyoto Protocol, what they did, and then now we thought maybe United States now was coming along, and then the big guy came and withdrew US. So what will be the impact? One, on the emission level, we'll be missing the big contribution from US, because from what they contributed was they will reduce their emission by 26 to 28% from what they produce, and that was the target by 2025. So we are missing this. What will be the impact? The agreement was targeting to reduce way below 2.0 and making effort to reach 1.5. So the emission from US, from the quick estimate that was done, it could lead to either 0.3 to 0.6 increase of what was projected earlier. So these were the initial estimate after the statement made by Trump. So just one thing on emission. But also, as a developed country and as the largest emitter, they were binded to provide support to developing countries. And US had already committed $3 billion US dollars to Green Climate Fund, the GCF, which is supposed to be the biggest fund now. And as he said, the previous administration had already committed
That's
$1
Obama
billion.
administration.
That's Obama, yes. So they already committed $1 billion out of the three that
Can he rescind? Do you think he will rescind to that commitment?
No, because it was already dispersed to GCF.
Okay.
So
Okay. He can't go back and
we'll
say,
be
no,
missing,
bring my
yes.
money back.
So we're missing the $2 billion
Okay.
out of the $3 billion commitment. So that's another loss that we have.
Okay.
And for a country like US that has like a leadership, diplomatic leadership in the world, this is also a setback. And the good thing that the world and even some of the states, the Far East and the Far West, have not supported his decision. And if you look, the Far East and the West are the one who will be affected much by the impact. So as a state, they are not supporting their president statement. So they continue with what they
Knowing
planned.
what kind of person we are dealing with here in the name of Trump, do you think there are chances that this man will reconsider his reasons of pulling out reasonable?
And not, of course, because he's looking at the climate change issue as economy issue for United States.
Business.
Because he said they will lose more than 4 million jobs, especially for the coal miners. And also it will be a disadvantage for economy of United States comparing to China and India, which he proclaimed that they will be allowed to continue with the coal mining, which is not the case, but he said they will be allowed to continue with the coal mining in China and India, while it is restricted in United States.
But
So
the reverse to that is also true, that China and India are determined now to increase their effort in support of climate change and the Paris Agreement.
of course, and China now has turned to be a leading nation on the fight against climate change after US withdraw.
I saw Dr. Makoto was smiling, maybe burning inside to try and come in here. Very quickly, can you come in?
Exactly. I just wanted to add on what Faisal was saying regarding the decision that has been made by the American president. Actually, the previous president, the former president, Mr. Barack Obama,
Yes.
the plan that he had put forward was to reduce emissions between 26 to 28%. And how would this be achieved? It was through shutting down some of the
Coal mines.
Exactly, coal.
Or some industries, including the coal.
And switching to solar and wind energy. Massive investment in those ones. Now, take into consideration that the decision has been made by the current president, just like what he said, this is going to have a very, very serious impact. Because going back to the Kyoto Protocol, it was agreed that for these developing countries, they have to contribute towards efforts for mitigating this climate change, according to what level of production of these greenhouse gases that they are making.
Yes.
Now, given America is among these big nations that is contributing a lot, and since the president is going to pull them down, this will definitely bring a lot of problems in terms of financing climate change, mitigation and adaptation initiatives from developed world. And it might reach a point, even other nations might also say the same. If at all Americans are the ones who are contributing much and they're pulling out, why should we do this? Then let us all do that. Although currently, if you make close follow-up, you can see immediately after the current president announced about the plan to pull out America from the Paris Agreement, then the Prime Minister for UK raised concern, saying, no, this is not supposed to be done. Even the President of France and the Chancellor from Germany, they all vocal saying that, no, this cannot be done. If you are doing this and you know you are the biggest polluter, why should you
This
do
cannot be done, or this is unacceptable because it has
it's
already been done?
It's unacceptable, but then they say it will take time before it is going to be effected, in the sense that it may take the whole time that...
almost 3 years.
Exactly, Trump is in power. Exactly. So, in a way, they have decided to do so, but the impact might be felt after a bit.
I suppose it's all politics. It looks like it's politics. Because even within the US, there's so much objection to this, particularly the industries,
Yes, from that perspective, even within the US, the federal states are already taking action.
Yeah.
Even though at global, at national level, the US government has withdrawn, but at the local level, the states themselves, they're already setting their own targets.
Yeah,
so I hope that they will continue doing the same, because nowadays there is a thin link between climate change and also trade. Most of the product, most of the consumers are aware of, are quite aware of climate change impact. Some of them, they see, where is this product from? How much is it emitting? Is it from the US? Oh no, I'm going to not going to buy. So the company and some of the multinational company might not support Trump, even though politically has done it so. But I still hope that some of these states will continue doing something in the interest of the global citizen.
Okay, let's go back to our own situation now. We leave alone Donald Trump. I think the solution will be found as long as China and India are really fully in agreement and supportive of the Paris Agreement. Rebecca, what more does Tanzania need to do beyond the nationally determined contributions? Because we had to submit these national determined contributions before this signing of the convention. What more do we need to do? You know about these national determined things, yes?
Yeah, Tanzania, we are yet to have the national determined. We are still having an intended determined contribution until we sign the Paris Agreement. That when we have the nationally ratify the agreement. Yeah, and when you look at the INDCs, when you read it closely, it says that all what Tanzania has committed will depend on the level of technology and the resources, all those means of implementation that will be provided by the developed countries who are actually the most emitting nations, and actually that was their commitment. And one of the commitments is to provide 100 billion to the developing country to help them to adapt and mitigate the climate change. So unless they do that, that's when we'll see the effectiveness of these commitments that have been done in Africa. But at national level, we can't sit down and say we are waiting for they need us to support that. We have got to do something because it's our own people, it's our economy actually. We need to build a resilient economy. And in order to do that, it has to be done at various levels. So at national level, we need to look at our policies, plans, and the strategies. And unless it is all the climate proofing interventions are integrated in our policies, plans, and strategies, we won't make really progress. So we need to integrate climate change in our policies, strategies, and all our development. But again, we need also to see the means to mobilize resources.
I mean locally.
Locally, I'm talking about local resource mobilization. There are so many innovation that we could do in order to mobilize resources, in order to improve our adaptation capacity. Because there was a study conducted, Economics of Climate Change, actually, this was conducted around 2010. Estimated that Tanzania, Panam will need about 100 to 150 US million in order to support our
US dollar.
1
million.
Our own adaptation efforts. But in a more conservative way, they're saying it could be even $500 million that we need per annum. And these estimations are basing on 2010.
We are now 2017.
Analysis. Now we are 2017. And actually, before that, we didn't experience extreme weather events that we are experiencing today. It means the cost of adaptation is even more higher than what was estimated. And when you look at the financial coffers we have, so we need really to make sure that we build our economic muscles by all means, and to make the economy the resilient. So it can be done at that policy level, but at private sector level also need to come in and contribute to the effort. And this can be done through various ways. One of it could be contributing to this resource mobilization. If Tanzania private sector could be interested in,
I think they're interested. I read somewhere, I might be corrected, where my good friend Ali Mofuruki, the chairman of the Roundtable,
National Trust,
okay,
Environmental Trust Fund.
he was talking about this.
Yeah.
So they're already in the move on that direction, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, as a private sector.
yes, they're in the move of motivating each other. It hasn't happened, but I think we are geared toward the right direction. That
They had to start somewhere,
yes.
Rebecca.
So yeah.
All right. Before I come to the last question, time seems to be running away. As NGO, Forum for Climate Change, the recent heavy rainfall, floods, just take Dar es Salaam, but if you go out, the roads were cut, Lushoto, Mara and all that. Wasn't it the best time for you as NGO to raise this awareness, because it was befitting while they see what is happening and to educate them that climate change is serious? Did you do that?
Yes, we have been doing that, and actually now we are geared toward partnering with local government authorities. For example, we are going to have a very big project with Ilala municipality funded by European Union, and this will be mainly on waste management in Dar es Salaam and create awareness on issues.
Waste
related
management.
Yes.
Nemki.
Yes, because this is the biggest problem in Dar es Salaam, apart from the infrastructure challenges
Yes.
in Dar es Salaam, it's contributed by the waste management. So this is one of the areas that we are.
There's always been a problem. When
Yes.
it rains, these houses in Buguruni, in Mwananyamala, I don't know where Mwananyamala, or that's when they open up their toilets to clean them and they go with water. Waste management is a problem, but we'll have a special program for this. We have had one, but I think we need to have one.
And one of the things that I throw to the doctor here is the issue of these thin black plastic bags.
Yes.
I need him to come in and say we know the government position, but what's the level of enforcement? Because it's one of the.
Do they contribute to climate change and the
No.
environment?
They aggravate the problem because these plastic bags are not used, sustainably.
Yeah.
Communities, especially in slum areas, they throw everywhere the plastic bags.
Yes.
And we all know the impact.
All right.
Yeah. So that's one of the areas that we are planning to work on. But we have been working with all the institutions relevant to addressing climate change.
Are you working together with the environmental unit in the VP's office?
Yes, we are working with the Vice President office. Actually, we are implementing part of the Vice President project in Zanzibar, Bagamoyo, Pangani, Rufiji. Yeah, and we are working closely. And this is a joint effort.
Rebecca, while you're on the floor, time is running out. Let's go to the very last question. All what you people have raised here is very fundamental and very important. It has gone a long way towards emphasizing fundamentally climate change is a serious issue. So you can respond to this one or two. What are your view, in your view, are the serious challenges facing or will face Tanzania on climate change and the environment? Very quickly.
Yeah, my first concern is economic growth. If Tanzania won't really take up a serious, take climate change as a serious issue that need to be addressed, it means all the development efforts are going to be affected. So my first concern would be climate change, and why climate change seems to affect most of our countries. We don't have economic muscles enough to, adapt to the effect. US has.
Is it economic muscle or political will?
No, for me it's economic, because even if there's a general acceptance at all, as from the highest level of decision making, including the president himself, to the lowest level, wants today to address climate change, we don't have financial resources.
All right.
We don't have the financial resources.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you will have followed the budget speech of the Minister for Finance, Dr. Mpango. He was talking about the economic, trends and all that. Okay. Well, maybe he has touched one or two things. Well, Dr. Manyika, very quickly, my question was, in your view, what would be the serious challenges facing Tanzania today or will face Tanzania in the future on climate, mitigating effects of climate change and the environment? Very quickly.
Yes, climate change impacts are increasing, and the cost of adapting to climate change and also increasing. Now the resources are very meager. What should we do as a country? We can't just stay idle. We need to integrate climate change in our designing of project, designing of whatever we do at local, national, and even at international level. We need more support. There are also some technologies that we need to adapt at the moment that we don't have. So we have to work together, collaborate with every partner who is available. That's why we are working with the NGOs. We also invite the private sector to come together to get our hands to address the climate change.
All right. Quickly.
Yeah, thank you. Just like what others have said, what we need to do, first of all, is to have like a multi-sectoral approach in order to address issues related to climate change. And this is what we've been doing in one of the projects that we were implementing in order to address issues related to climate change. So at the district level, the councils, they need to make sure that all the sectors within the district, they try to mainstream climate change related issues in their daily activities and programs. But apart from that, we have to put more emphasis in the research institutions, because as we said, we have prolonged drought spells and all this. So we need to have crops that are resistant to these changes and climate variability, so that we can have crops that can grow within a limited time and they can mature within that short period, instead of using just like the normal seeds and the varieties that we are having. Those kind of approaches will ensure that at least we are having ways of fighting against climate change. Because when you consider mitigation, Mitigation is all about reducing the amount of carbon dioxide. But as we saw here, America is pulling out. Even if we put more emphasis in mitigation, what are we going to reduce out of this?
Okay.
Exactly.
So the establishment of the Center for Climate Change and Environment at the University of Dar es Salaam studies
Exactly.
is one of those steps you're talking about.
Exactly. Those are the kind of initiatives.
In terms of research
exactly.
and development.
Research and
Okay.
development.
Very quickly, Fazan.
One
One or two, or even one would be better because of time.
It's a good thing that we're now realizing climate change is affecting our economy. As you say, the minister has mentioned in March and on the budget speech itself. So the second one is not just, we are moving on from realizing climate change is affecting our economy now to making strategy, actual strategy in our plans to implement them, because we've been saying climate change is a challenge to development. So now, what are the strategy? What are the specific allocation for budgets to address the climate change impact? And it's not just under the Vice President office, Minister of Environment and Union Affairs. It should cut across. So I would also support Minister January Makamba on his call for having a specific budget code on climate change issues.
For every ministry?
Yeah, so climate change could be part of every budget, and that way we'll see actually the government commitment on addressing climate change in Tanzania.
All right. Well, my panelists, thank you very much. The 55 minutes are just up, and it will seem to be very short for you, but this is always the case when you have an interesting topic and good panelists who know the subject, and they come in with the views that that go a long way towards educating the viewers. Time will always be limited, but thank you very much for all your contribution and your summaries, which are very important: economic research and you know, the budget being inclusive in all the ministry, making climate change as a cross-cutting issue as the way. Thank you very much. Okay, viewers, we heard the views of my panelists here. Climate change is serious, and the global community came together and agreed to the Paris Agreement, referred to as the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Tanzania was among the first countries that submitted her intended nationally determined contribution, as we've heard from Rebecca here. Those were determined, but we need to have more concrete on the adaptation and mitigation, which was certainly a demonstration of Tanzania's commitment to fulfill her obligations under the convention and the Paris Agreement. Obviously, as a country, and as we've heard from my panelists here, Tanzania is conscious that the fate and prosperity of the country are intrinsically, extricably linked to the effects of climate change, according to Ambassador Tuvako Manongi, who is a permanent representative at the United Nations at the signing ceremony of the Paris Agreement in April, and as we've heard from Faisal here. While Tanzania and over 197 countries which have signed to the Paris Agreement, the United States under President Trump has pulled out of the agreement. And this move has been condemned by many countries, as we've heard here, with the impact that will be created. By doing so, President Trump has taken the U.S. and the world many steps backwards in the global fight against global warming. Let us hope and wait and see what impact of this decision will be on climate change and the efforts of the rest of the world, and some of the expected impact we've heard from my panelists here. That's all we have for you today. Until next Sunday at 21 hours and on Thursday at 15 hours for the repeat program. On behalf of my very able, capable panel, Fazal Issa, Dr. Vedast Makota, Dr. Kezio Freddy Manyika, it's a very interesting name, and the simplest to pronounce, Rebecca Muna. And my TBC Television Center crew, thank you, viewers, and goodbye.